Greetings, everyone. The African National Congress has just emerged from its policy conference. The policy conference, as we are told, makes proposals for policies to be adopted at its elective conference. In this case, these policies are going to be adopted in the December conference 2022. What is clear from the ANC Policy Conference is that the holders of Zimbabwean exemption permits will not be able to renew. In the past, we have always said that the majority do not qualify, only those that would, whether they are married to South Africans or people on PR. All that is set to change. The ANC says, if I'm married to a South African, I should deal with my marriage separately from my documentation. That is for me to be granted a sponsored visa. It says these two must be separated. Separate the marriage from the question of immigration in terms of the Immigration Act must be separated. This means that if this is then adopted, if you are married to a South African or to a person who's on PR, this means that you will not be able to apply for a spousal or a partner's permit in South Africa. Well, we will have to see how they are going to deal with, say, a medical doctor who is coming from Cuba, who is coming to work in South Africa, but the partner does not have critical skills, whether citizens are going to be separated. I mean, couples are going to be separated from each other. Because in the most cases was that if, say, a medical doctor from Cuba is coming to work in South Africa, but the partner is not it does not have critical skills, the partner then accompanies the partner who is on critical skills has been granted a visa to work in South Africa. So in a number of cases, the people of low skill, if you are married to an engineer from Zimbabwe, they get a job to come and work in South Africa. The partner, say the wife, would apply under the husband because the husband has been granted a job, and the husband will move with the family for a period indicated in the visa or in the work contract. But all this is coming under review, as we understand, because the proposal from the ANC Policy Conference is that you need to separate marriage and the issue of immigration. That if I'm married to a South African, no one stops me from doing that, but I have to follow the Immigration Act in terms of regularizing my stay in South Africa. You'll recall that in 2015, when the Department of Home Affairs was reviewing the 1999 Immigration Act, or the White Paper on International Migration as adopted in 1999, the argument was that because of our colonial past in Africa, most Africans across the continent do not have what we call critical skills in the main. People have, because of the colonial education, people have jobs, qualifications which are not considered critical. For instance, we'll know that during colonial education or during colonialism, few Africans studied sciences. So it was felt in 2015-2016 that the 1999 White Paper on International Migration was favoring people from New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and elsewhere outside Africa to come and work in South Africa. So it was said it was Eurocentric. It was not Pan-African. Most Africans, because of the colonial education, they studied what we call the amenities subjects, your history, studied languages, studied law, studied journalism, which in the main are not critical skills in South Africa. And the post-colonial regimes in the continent have not transformed our educational sector, especially in poor communities where people study sciences. If you check in most rural communities, whether in South Africa, whether in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Nigeria, and so on, those poor communities still do not study science subjects in the main. That is the legacy of colonialism. So the White Paper on International Migration, as adopted in 1999, was said to be Eurocentric. It was not Pan-African. But if you then read the 2017 gazetted White Paper on International Migration, it then recognized the colonial legacy that Africans in the main, because of colonial legacy, did not study sciences, and the post-liberation regimes have not transformed our education to an extent that the majority of our people across the continent study sciences. This is why the 2017 White Paper on International Migration then made proposals that it is a reality that in our countries, particularly in South Africa, or in countries where, in the regions where you have countries that are performing better than others. For instance, in the SADC region, you have South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, whose economies are doing well. And Zambia, of course, is now picking up. So you will have migrants in those countries that are of low skill, that will want to look for greener pastures in those countries. So the South African government then became the first government within the region in 2017 to recognize this reality of a colonial legacy, that people in the main have a low skill. But as part of free movement of the people, you have to find ways of documenting such individuals. But the policy conference of the ANC, as it concluded, I've just been perusing, I haven't read because I'm traveling, I've just been perusing through the a 33-page document which was presented at the policy conference, which talks about South African interests. So the policy conference seeks to reverse all that, to say a person that comes to work in South Africa must have skills that are not available in South Africa. It departs from recognizing this colonial legacy within the African continent. It goes back to 1999 or beyond, to say only those with the skills that are not in South Africa should come and work in South Africa if they so wish. And we know that the majority of those are from New Zealand, Australia, United States, Canada, Europe, very few in Africa. Now, so if we go by that argument, as presented in the policy conference of the ANC, which just concluded, it means that holders of the Zimbabwe exemption permits, who in the main are people of low skill, will not be able to move to other visas. In other words, based on the discussions that were happening, it is safe to say the ZEP will not be renewed. Now, let's also understand why we are getting to this conclusion that ZEP won't be renewed. I will not talk about the court processes that are happening because we are not part of the court processes, so I will not talk about something that I do not know. Now, at the ANC Policy Conference, the issue of the Zimbabwe exemption permit was discussed under a commission known as Peace and Security. It was not discussed, excuse me, under international commission. The reason, therefore, it means the Peace and Security Commission sees the influx of migrants to South Africa, undocumented migrants for that matter, as a security threat. And therefore, because of, in most cases, the crime associated with migrants in some communities, the discussion does not then narrow into the ZEP holders who are already in the system. But the discussion discusses broadly the issue of undocumented migrants coming to South Africa and what it means to South Africa. If you read the document, South African interest, because this is viewed as a threat to the South African interest or its security. It's a question of crime and so on. So the discussion, therefore, as it was happening, as we get highlights of what was happening, because the commissions were closed, but we're getting highlights through the media when the leaders of the commissions have been interviewed in various medias, is that the Commission on Peace and Security did not specifically narrow down discussing ZEP holders, but it discussed the threat, security threat of undocumented migrants into South Africa. And because the decision of the cabinet was already that people should move to other visas, even though the government knew that people will not qualify. But also the issues of unemployment. Issues of unemployment from a security point of view are viewed as a security threat by the South African government. If you have many unemployed South Africans, you remember President Thabo Mbeki saying you can't have so many unemployed people, otherwise you will have an Arab Spring in South Africa. So unemployment or high number of unemployed people becomes, from the viewpoint of the Peace and Security Commission of the African National Congress, a security threat. Therefore, according to the ANC, if high numbers of unemployment is a security threat, it does therefore not matter how many holders of ZEP are. It then says if they cannot move to other visas, therefore the jobs that they are doing, the few jobs that they are doing, should be taken over by South Africans as a way of trying to manage a possible Arab Springs if one were to quote former President Thabo Mbeki. We are recording this video, or we're having this discussion when we see what is happening in Alexandra, though it is not related to unemployment. But when residents react in the manner in which they are reacting in Alexandra on service delivery, and on the basis that the mayor did not attend the meeting, which was convened, from a security point of view, what is happening is a security threat. So if the unemployed were to do what is happening in Alexandra across the country, it is a security threat, according to the Peace and Commission of the ANC. So in conclusion, it is now very clear, best, even though these proposals are yet to be adopted in December, unless something happens between now and December, holders of ZEP who do not qualify to move to other visas will not be able to move, or will not be able to be assisted. That's the reality we have to face. And if the proposals to overhaul the Immigration Act, as was proposed at the ANC Policy Conference, you might currently be a beneficiary, say, of a partners or sponsor a visa or these other visas that are not really considered critical, relative visas and so forth. But once that is reviewed and went through the parliamentary process, you might have challenges to renew. So you might not be a holder of ZEP and say, well, I'm not a holder of ZEP, I'm not affected. But when your own permit then expires, your own visa expires, if it is not under critical skills, you might have challenges of renewing that. Let me just, as I conclude, just read some few comments. Thanks, comrades, for writing here. Comrade Antonelia Mabena Mbuduma says, "Kulungile Nkosi, nothing we can do." And then Comrade Medford Mhlauli says, "Policies are good, but on the marriage part, I believe it needs a lot of changes to say, do not marry out of this country. Marriage Act must be changed first." Well, Comrade Manford, you marry based on love. The minister was speaking on television. I watched him, the Minister of Home Affairs says you marry based on love. And where no one can stop you to marry a person that you love. But the issue, of course, is when you then ask the government to grant you a permit on the basis that you are married. Fetso Sadiki says, and where's this? Pachena is Hamazangu. Let's just swallow the bitter pill. No one knows. TMRP maybe is gonna be for the best. Well, thanks, comrade. Then Comrade Teresa Kabatabat says, the court case has, and there will be the only hope. I have confidence in the court cases. Well, like I said, I will not comment on that. How are you, comrade Erasmus Musoriri and comrade Prelina Ncube Mchan? Yeah, it's a difficult. So it is not about holders of ZEP. Let's underline this, because holders of ZEP is 178,000 or less. But it speaks to people of low skill who are coming to South Africa. And it will be difficult for a lawyer, for a journalist to work in South Africa. That's the reality. So let's continue engaging, comrades. Otherwise, thank you so much. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you to all of you that have subscribed, and please like this video and circulate. I'm traveling, so you might not see me in the next few days on YouTube. Otherwise, stay safe. Goodbye.